On the windswept border of modern-day Turkey and Armenia, a deep gorge cuts abruptly through the earth. Below lies the freezing Ahorian River. Above sits an empty plateau. Scattered here are the remains of the abode of peace. These ruins belong to Ani. 1,000 years ago, this was the capital of the Bagratid Kingdom, a powerful medieval Armenian state, and it was famous across the world as the city of 1,001 churches. To walk among these stones today is to see the skeleton of a vanished world, where the daily lives of 100,000 people were woven directly into the volcanic rock. During its peak in the 10th century, Ani was a booming metropolis. Over 100,000 residents lived and traded within its limits. This chart compares the scale of Ani to major Western European cities of the same era. While London and Paris were still clusters of wooden huts and muddy paths, Ani was a massive urban center, shimmering with domes of colored stone. At a time when its kings dictated regional trade and global architectural trends, few could have imagined that a city this large would eventually disappear from the map. The city was anchored by a massive double-ringed perimeter. Armenian kings used these fortifications to project power, sealing the plateau behind heavy masonry designed to repel dozens of sieges. While these walls provided the shield, the actual pulse of the city lay below, in the turbulent waters of the Ahorian River. Today, 2 ruined brick piers stand stranded on opposite banks, one in Turkey, the other in Armenia. These piers once supported a massive stone bridge that served as a vital, high-traffic crossing for the Great Silk Road. Caravans laden with silk, spices, and manuscripts crossed here. Ani held a monopoly as the ultimate connector between Eastern empires and Western markets. Silk Road wealth was poured into the Cathedral of Ani, an imposing structure carved entirely from red tuff. It was completed in the year 1001 by a master architect named Tredat. He held a reputation as the most skilled engineer in the Christian East. When the massive dome of Hagia Sophia in Constantinople collapsed after an earthquake, the Byzantine emperor specifically commissioned Tredat to restore it. In Ani, Tredat utilized pointed arches and clustered vertical piers to support the immense weight of the stone ceilings. While Western Europe was still building with heavy, rounded Romanesque arches, Tredat's work in Ani featured the structural backbone of the Gothic era nearly 2 centuries before those innovations reached France. A brutal sequence of external shocks eventually destabilized the city, including devastating earthquakes, Mongol invasions, and later the raids of Tamerlane. The shifting of global maritime trade routes eventually bypassed the land-based Silk Road. The bridge became obsolete, and the city was slowly starved of its economic lifeblood. The 11th century Church of the Redeemer stands as a physical manifestation of this slow death. In 1957, a lightning strike cleaved the building in 2. One side collapsed, leaving the remaining half standing and exposing the interior nave like an anatomical cross-section. Half erased from the landscape, it remains standing against the laws of physics, much like the memory of Ani itself. By the 18th century, the city was abandoned. Its cosmopolitan markets were replaced by quiet pastures for local sheep. The river gorge that once served as a connecting artery is now a closed state border, guarded by 2 different nations. For Armenians, these ruins remain a powerful symbol of their historical peak, representing a moment when their artistic genius dictated the fashion of the East. Though called a ghost city, the architecture speaks through tough carvings and echoes in the empty naves. Empires can be reduced to dust and borders can shift, but the cultural memory carved into these stones outlasts the civilizations that built them.